Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Mrs. Ningtyas, Orilina, Argawati, MPD as a Supervisor 1 and Mr. Hendra Husnussalam, SPDM Home to guide me until this stage. And I would like to say thank you to the examiner for watching my presentation and who has taken the time for this section. Let me introduce myself. My name's Yulia Rahmawati with student's ID number 182200187 from English Education Study Program 2018. In this video, I would like to present you about developing gamification guidelines using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension in Recount text at 10th grade in vocational school. Okay. I've divided my presentation into 5 main parts. There are background of the research, objectives of the research, research methodology, result of the research, and conclusion. My presentation will take about 20 minutes. First of all, I'd like to give you a preview of background of the research. The study discovered during the field experience practice at vocational school to Cimahi. The researcher found that first, students majoring in mechatronics had difficulties in reading comprehension. Many children have trouble locating particular information, generating inferences, detecting the main idea, and comprehending detailed information from recount text. This is clearly not in keeping with the objectives of the lesson plan or curriculum that was employed. Furthermore, reading comprehension is one of the important abilities that must be developed by students. It is one of the methods in which students get information from the text they read in school. This is supported by Algazo in 2015, stated that the key to academic success is reading comprehension ability of the student. Students get knowledge from the text or books read by them using reading comprehension ability owned by each student. The better reading comprehension ability of students, the more information and knowledge obtained by students through reading. And second, the next problem faced by the world of education is students and teachers who lack mastery of the use of technology today. In research conducted by Rahim, Suherman, and Murtiani in 2019, there are several factors that influence this, such as the lack of ICT training for teachers and students' knowledge in the use of learning application in the era of the Industrial Revolution 4.0. To overcome the first problem, it is necessary to use the gamification method in learning activities. Gamification is a learning system using games that aims to increase students' courage and to build an interest competition in a class. Johnson in 2014 claimed that gamification is one of the technologies that have a major impact in schools in countries with good technological advancements. To solve the second problem, the researcher uses Kahoot application as one of the gamification tools. The reason why the researcher uses Kahoot is because Kahoot has a lot of features, so it can create a wide variety of games for learning. Kahoot provides a variety of questions that can be done by students. These questions are made by teachers or experts in their fields who use the Kahoot application as well. As a result of the many features and simplicity of use, the researcher concluded that the Kahoot program is suitable for use in classrooms by teachers. Based on these problems mentioned above, title of this research is Developing Gamification Guidelines Using Kahoot to Learn Reading Comprehension in Recount Text at 10th grade in vocational school. This product conducted to solve the reading comprehension problems and the needs of teachers and students in operating gamification-based technology using the Kahoot application. Okay. Next, objectives of the research. There are 3 objectives of the research. 1. To describe the process of developing gamification guidelines using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension and Recount text at 10th grade in vocational school. 2. To describe the feasibility of developing gamification guidelines using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension at 10th grade in vocational school. 3. To describe teachers and students' responses of developing gamification guidelines using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension in Recount text at 10th grade in vocational school. Okay, next. Research methodology. In research methodology, there are research method, research subjects, and research instrument. Research method. The research method in this study is research and development. According to Guy in 2012, research and development, or R&D, is the process of researching customer needs and then developing products to fulfill those needs. The purpose of R&D effort in education is not to formulate or test theory, but to develop an effective product for use in schools. In this research, bug and goals model was used. You can see on the table, they were preliminary study, research planning, draft product, validation expert, revision, main field testing, operational field testing, and final product. Okay, next, about research location. This research was conducted in vocational school to Cimahi. And the research subjects are in main field testing. There are 7 students at 10th grade of Mechatronics A. In operational field testing are 15 students at 10th grade of Mechatronics B. And then research instrument. The researcher used questionnaires and interviews to collect the data. Questionnaires are given to the validator 1 and 2 as a reference in product validation, and to students in main field testing and operational field testing. The interviews is used to describe the students' and teachers' responses to the product. Okay, next. Result of the research. There are 3 results of the research. First, during the process of developing product, the researcher used the steps of bulk and goal in 1983 as a reference in the development of the gamification guideline book. In draft product, the first design made by the researcher is the selection of material that will be presented in the gamification guideline book. The researcher selects several materials that will be presented as follows. First, about Kahoot chapter. The chapter discusses the introduction of the Kahoot application, starting from the history to the function of the Kahoot. Then the researcher added how to use Kahoot for teachers and students. This is the main goal in the development of this gamification guideline book. Thus, the researcher made a simple text on how to use Kahoot so that it is easier to understand and can be directly practiced in the classroom. Second, in reading comprehension section, the researcher discusses the meaning of reading comprehension and reading, skimming, scanning techniques. The goal is for students to understand what reading comprehension is and what it does for students. In addition, students can also use techniques in reading to help students facilitate the reading comprehension process. The reading comprehension chapter consists of only 2 pages in the gamification guidelines, namely pages 16 and 17. Third, Recount text chapter. The selection of material regarding Recount text is chosen by the researcher and products developed as other learning resources besides this: Google, textbook, a magazine or newspaper that students usually use in class. In the Recount text chapter, there are several sections that discuss recount text. The material is in the form of the meaning and purpose of recount text, the structure of recount text, language, features of recount text, and the types of recount text, and of course examples. The researcher add collection of questions and vocabulary zone after recount text chapter. The collection of questions is purposed to improve reading comprehension, students' ability in recount text. Vocabulary zone that aims to develop students' vocabulary of English for specific purpose, science, and technology in the backyard. When the researcher done the validation expert with the validator 1 and 2, there was some revision. The revision are the objectives need to be fit with the lesson plan in vocational school to Cimahi. The font should be adjusted to a more readable style so that students can follow along with the lesson without difficulty. The font size should also be modified to make reading easier for the student. This may help students better comprehend the information if the picture on the product matches and supports the content on the product. When creating the gamification guideline book, it should be resized from A4 to A5 to A4 format as the last step in developing this product. An example of the context must match the engineering measure. In addition, the researcher needs to add some questions to the practice questions. Okay, this is main field testing. It was determined from data gathered that students who participated in the main field testing were unable to play the books accompanying game using the Kahoot application that had been supplied by the researcher. Thus, the researcher needs to revise the page how to play with the questions in the book. The researcher chooses to raise the illustration on the page so that students or readers can more easily follow the tutorials that have been provided. Of course, this is a picture before and after revision of the how to play with the questions in the book page. In addition to the how to play with the questions in the book section, students also gave suggestions for adding vocabulary and its meaning. Here is an addition to the vocabulary about science and technology that can help students majoring in engineering use English in the work environment. In operational field testing, there is no need revision, so the final product is the product in operational field testing. Okay, next. About the feasibility. In the feasibility, there are three categories. There are content, presentation, and language. The content presented in the product can be categorized as feasible. The gamification guideline using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension in accordance with the material is taught at 10th grade level. This can be seen in the result of the questionnaires that have been shared previously during operational field testing. The recount text was chosen because the material is in the 10th grade. In addition, the gamification guidelines using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension and recount text are in accordance with the learning objectives at the 10th grade level. The feasibility of the presentation can be seen from several indicators, such as the product being presented in a systematic arrangement. The arrangement of the gamification guideline book is presented systematically from the start of the Kahoot chapter and then followed by the reading comprehension chapter and then recount text chapter and then quiz or collection of questions and last vocabulary zone. The product's illustration and color scheme are attractive and appropriate for the material used The utilized illustration correspond to the topic of the engineering department. The dominant white set was selected so that the product's text could be easily seen by students. In terms of aesthetic creation, they are thus visible. The product uses the language and vocabulary corresponding to a 10th grader, so the product can be categorized as possible. Proper use of language makes the language unambiguous. The researcher uses a raw word that is easy for students to understand. The use of Indonesian in Kahoot chapters aims to make it easier for students or readers to use the Kahoot application. After the Kahoot chapter, there is a reading comprehension chapter. In this section, the researcher uses Indonesian so that students or readers can understand the definition of reading comprehension and techniques in reading skills that can make it easier for students or readers to answer questions on the quiz. The researcher used full English text in the collection of questions so that students or readers can start practicing reading comprehension and can answer the questions that have been provided. The visibility of the product in the language component is also judged by consistent use of terms and symbols. Gamification guidelines products use consistent terms and symbols such as the Kahoot emblem, so that in the language component, the product is categorized as visible. Okay, next. The responses. From the result of interview during research and development, students' responses toward the products developed are good. Students can understand the purpose of the gamification guideline book. In addition, students can read the writing clearly and understand the content of each chapter in the Kahoot chapter. Students can follow the direction of book in the Kahoot. In the reading comprehension chapter, students can find out and place themselves by using reading comprehension skills that are easy to master. In the Recount text chapter, students argue that the examples and questions given are in accordance with the mechatronics measure and can understand it clearly and well. The positive reaction of students is also observed in the addition of the meaning of the vocabulary provided to the product. Students are very interested in the presentation of products that follow the times with them of engineering but still give an aesthetic impression that can attract students' reading interest in book. Okay. How about teacher response? Teachers was cooperative and happy when she knew that the product developed can increase teacher skills and knowledge in the use of ICT. The use of A4 size as a product size is very appropriate because teachers seems to easily understand the writing, purpose, and use of gamification guidebooks. In addition, teacher was greatly helped by the existence of examples of recount text, questions that were in accordance with the major thought. Okay. Conclusion. From the research that has been done before, we can conclude that first, the process of developing gamification guidelines using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension in Recount text at 10th grade vocational school used book and goal as development stages. The product starts from a preliminary study, which then makes a product draft. After that, the product goes through the validation stage by 12 validation expert. After making revision in accordance with the direction, the product is continued in main field testing and operational field testing until it produces the final product. Second, the content, the presentation, and the language of gamification guidelines using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension in Recount text at 10th grade in vocational school are in accordance with the learning objectives and are acceptable to students. So it can be concluded that the gamification is worth using by 10th graders majoring in mechatronics at vocational school. And last, from the interview that have been done by the researcher, it can be concluded that teacher and students respond of the gamification guidelines using Kahoot to learn reading comprehension in Recount text at 10th grade in vocational school has received positive responses. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you for your attention. Hoping this research can use for teachers, students, and other researchers. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.